I call to order the Board of Zoning Appeals for the City of Bloomington Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for June 25th. Roll call, please.
Burrell,
Yes.
Fernandez, Kudzinko.
Here.
For the approval of the minutes, I have approval of the minutes for May 28th, 2026.
I will move approval of the May 28, 2026 minutes.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Burrell,
Yes.
Fernandez,
Yes.
Kudzinko.
Yes.
The number 3 item of the agenda is petitions continued for July 23rd meeting 2026. There are none. And so we're going to go straight to the petitions for this evening. This evening we have 3 petitions. We have ZR 2026-05-0020, 13 South Patterson Drive. We also have ZR 2026-05-0022, 1155 South College Mall Road. And we also have ZR 2026-05-0023, 412 East Wiley Street. Anything from the staff?
Nope, nothing from staff.
All right, so let's get started. May I have the report for ZR 2026-05-0020, 113 South Patterson Drive.
Yes, this is a request, as mentioned, for the property at 1300 South Patterson Drive. The petitioners are coming forward tonight for a variance from sign standards to allow for the placement of 10 freestanding signs around the property for the use manufacturing light in a planned unit development. So this property is part of the Thompson PUD and is currently being utilized by Novo Nordisk for several manufacturing and production capabilities, and is a very large property, and as you can see on the site map here, one of the certainly unique characteristics is that it has frontage on several adjacent property street frontages. You have Strong Drive to the north, Allen Street to the, Strong Drive to the west, Allen Street to the north, Patterson Drive to the east. A portion of Hillside Drive encroaches onto the east side of the property as well, and then along Rogers Street to the south. So the property has been developed with several manufacturing buildings that are very large, that are located in the center of the site, and then you have several parking areas to the north, east, that surround those buildings, and then a separate parking area was constructed a few years ago to the south of the buildings that is accessed from Rogers Street. So with the use of the property as a production and manufacturing business, there is a variety of traffic that moves onto the site, both from employees as well as visitors, but also truck traffic from shipping and receiving, and a lot of access points on those adjacent street frontages. So as you can imagine, there are, with the variety of traffic that is moving through the site, the petitioners are trying to provide signage around the periphery and within the site itself to guide those traffic, both, like I said, for visitors as well as employees, and then truck traffic that is moving through the buildings as well. So the petitioners are requesting a variance from sign standards. The UDO allows for only a maximum of 4 freestanding signs for this property, so they are requesting a variance to allow for 10 freestanding signs kind of scattered around the periphery as well as along the interior. So on the map that you see here, as well as the same exhibit that was in the packet, you can see where those signs are located. There would be 3 signs located along Strong Drive, 1 located along the Allen Street entrance on the north, 1 located along the Patterson Drive frontage to the east, and then 1 along the Hillside entrance, 1 along the parking area along Rogers Street, and then 3 that are somewhat internal to the site to help guide traffic within the site as well. So within the packet, the petitioners have shown signage where that would be, as well as the height and size of those signs. So with this, as I mentioned, there are several signs that are being shown throughout the site to help guide that traffic. The majority of the signage we do feel is certainly appropriate and helps guides the traffic through there. So the only change that we are recommending would be for the sign that is along Rogers Street on the south side to be reduced in height from the 7 feet 6 inches down to a 6-foot height, since this is very internal to the site. So with that, we did obviously have to make findings per the variance criteria that are required. Per the findings that are in the staff report, we did not find that there would be any injuries to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. The installation of these signs can actually have a benefit and help guide traffic and reduce traffic impacts on those adjacent roads by appropriately directing traffic through the site. Likewise, we do not expect any impacts on the use and value adjacent to the properties as a result of this, again, because the signs can help reduce impacts to those properties by appropriately managing traffic movement to and through the site. And then the third criteria, that the strict application of the terms of the UDO will result in practical difficulties, and that the practical difficulties are peculiar, are found in the large size of this property. And as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, the number of adjacent street frontages is certainly very unique and is not typical for what we have in Bloomington for the typical commercial property. And so having this wide number of frontages with multiple vehicular access points certainly does create a challenge with the use of the property and being restricted to the signage that is allowed by the UDO. And so the granting of this variance would allow for signage on the property that is appropriate, has been spaced apart, would require landscaping for all of the bases of the signs that are on the periphery. So that was addressed in condition number 2. And then condition number 3, as I mentioned, just deals with reducing the height of the internal sign along the south parking area to no more than 6 feet tall. So we are recommending that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the proposed findings for this petition and approve it with the 3 conditions that are listed in staff's report. And I'm happy to answer any questions once the petitioner has had a chance to speak.
Thank you, Eric. Can the petition step forward, please? If both of you are going to speak, if you could just both say your name, and then I will swear you in at the same time.
Kenton Pardue.
Brian Rails.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Okay, proceed. You have 20 minutes for your presentation.
Okay. I'm Kenton Pardue with Bledsoe Krieger Cooper James, acting on behalf of Novo Nordisk. Appreciate Eric and his introduction. We are proposing to add new signage, rebranding for Novo Nordisk at the 1300 South Patterson site. We are proposing 10 signs. The current ordinance would only allow us to have 4, but as Eric stated, this parcel is rather different than the typical lot that you'd have in the city. It's more of a large campus. In all, we have upwards of 3,000 to 4,000 linear feet of road frontage. So we do have 6 signs that are along the frontages to help direct traffic, as well as some additional interior signage to direct traffic around the site as well. And we agree with Eric on his findings as far as it's not injurious to public health. Also, it couldn't inversely affect the adjacent properties. If anything, it'll benefit by providing clearer direction to deliveries and either employees and just people trying to navigate around the city of what is Novo Nordisk, what is public right-of-way, and directing them around. And we're also we're in agreement with the recommendations, the conditions of approval, landscaping around the signs along public frontages. I believe it's the required square foot of landscape around the signs equal to the square foot of that sign. I'm acceptable with that, as well as shortening the sign down to 6 feet there at the Rogers entrance. And so we'd open it up to any questions you'd have for us.
Now or later?
I'll just provide a little context for Eric. He's right, it's a very complex site. One gate is discreetly for incoming materials. Another gate is discreetly for exgoing materials. There's separate contractor entrances as well, and then separate deliveries for the cafeteria services, and then you have the employee entrances. So what we're trying to do is provide direction to all those. We found several safety hazards with trucks trying to enter the wrong location and having to back out onto the public right-of-way and stopping traffic in order to redirect. So that's the purpose of the signage, and we have also eliminated a few of the signages that we found were a little redundant and or not compliant.
All right, thank you. And you still have, 17 minutes, 17 and a half to speak if you need to, and you can hold on to that, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, do you have any questions for staff or the petitioner? No? No? All right, do we have any public comment for ZR 2026-05-0020?
If there is anybody online that would like to speak to this petition, you can use the raise hand function, and we can recognize you. I'm not seeing anybody online.
Okay, if there's none, we're back to the BZA for a final action.
Kick it off then. First, thanks for continuing to invest in Bloomington. We know that site very well. For some of us, it gives us a little bit of PTSD, but from a long time ago. But excited about what's going on down there. I would just make a motion that we adopt the proposed findings for SR 2026-05-0020 and approve the variance with the conditions as set forward in the staff report.
Roll call, please.
Burrell,
Yes?
Fernandez,
Yes.
Kutsenko.
Yes,
Motion is approved.
Congratulations.
thank you.
All right, moving on to ZR 2026-05-0022, 1155 South College Mall Road. May I have a staff report, please?
Okay, thank you for your patience. Good evening. This is Jamie Kreinler, Senior Zoning Planner. And I'm presenting the case for the variance request at 1155 South College Mall Road. They're requesting a variance to increase the wall sign allowance for a multi-tenant center for the use, it's a restaurant use for crumble cookies, and the zoning is mixed-use corridor, and the petitioner for this case is Lisa Rains of Sign Solutions. So the location is part of the College Mall area, as you can see on the aerial map on the screen, and the existing building is a multi-tenant center, and the petitioner is proposing to replace their existing wall signage with the updated branding for their business. The surrounding properties are also zoned mixed-use corridor to the north, east, and south, and to the west, there's a mix of residential multifamily and mixed-use medium-scale zoning. UDO Section 20.04.100J2AII regulates the wall signage that's allowed for multi-tenant centers in the MC zoning district. And this section of the UDO states that the cumulative square footage of all wall signs for any individual tenant shall not exceed 1.5 square feet per lineal foot of the tenant's facade width facing either a public or private street. So the linear footage of Crumble's tenant space is 27 feet wide, and that allows them up to 40.5 square feet of wall signage. Crumble is wanting to add 2 new wall signs to their building, one on the front elevation and one on the rear elevation. And both of the signs are 40.5 inches tall by 141.75 inches wide, or roughly 40 square feet. So if you add both of those two signs together, the total is 79.74 square feet, and that exceeds the allowed wall signage by 39.24 square feet. Staff did research past permitting for this site, and we found a previous sign permit for Crumble that was issued in 2021. And the permit clearly states that 40.5 square feet is the maximum sign allowance based on the 27 linear feet of their store frontage, and that only one wall sign was approved at that time in 2021. The proposed plans in the file do depict that there are 2 wall signs with a cumulative of roughly 80 square feet of wall signage, so it's unknown if the applicant at the time was aware that only one of those signs was approved. So staff found that if the variance is approved, Crumble would be allowed nearly double the amount of wall signage than the UDO permits. The strict application of the terms of the UDO will not result in practical difficulties in the use of the property, as the UDO contemplates this exact scenario, and there's specific language in the UDO to address it. So while the department has considered the goals of the petitioner and the standards of the UDO, the variance request to increase the wall signage does not appear to be derived from a peculiar condition of this property, which is one of the finding requirements for a variance. So we are recommending that the BZA adopt the proposed findings in the staff report and deny the petition. And I'm happy to answer any questions after the petitioner presents.
Thank you. May I have the petitioner come forward, please? What is your name?
Thomas Hopkins. I'm with Sign Solutions. I'm representing Crumble Cookie.
Yeah, okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Proceed. You have 20 minutes.
Okay. Just here to represent Crumble. They're in a rebranding. As you can see from the pictures, they are simply changing their logo. They've had the 2 signs at the property for 5 years. It was my understanding that those 2 signs were permitted before. Did you say otherwise? I'm sorry, I thought they were permitted, and there was a mistake the first time, but then they allowed it. But obviously they're saying now they aren't allowed. So we're here to petition that they allow simply replacing what is there now. They haven't been an issue for 5 years, safety-wise. They look good on the building. There's simply their case. They feel they need them so that they can have one over their main entrance and one facing the, I think that's College Road, sorry. So that everybody can see it from both directions.
Anything else to add? That's it?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, if you remain there, we might have questions, please. So we'll go back to the board now. If you have questions for staff or the petitioner, please.
I have a question about the permitting. So was there originally 2 permits, or was there 1 permit?
There was only the 1 permit that we could find, so the permit says that they're allowed the 40.5 square feet for the 1 wall sign. But then I think some of the confusion is that the plans show 2 wall signs. So I think the permit was clear, and that was the city's understanding when the permit was issued 5 years ago. But the plans did show 2 wall signs, so I'm not sure how that was addressed at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Just clarification, are we talking about a sign for both sides of the building?
Yeah, so there's the front elevation and then the back of the building.
And so the maximum is how much?
It is 1.5 square feet per linear foot of frontage, which is 27 feet, so the maximum is 40.5.
And you're calculating that for 40 for both signs?
Yeah, for the total tenant space.
So, I mean, I don't know, I haven't read the code, but is it, does the code contemplate buildings that are placed that have two, I guess what you would call frontage?
I think there's language in the code that addresses the tenant spaces that are on the corner, like the edge of the multi-tenant center, but not the ones in the middle. I think Eric has that language pulled up.
Yeah, so the UDO, and we have dealt with this, there are certainly lots of situations throughout town where you have buildings that have a public street on one side and then the parking area and the access comes from a different side. So there was language that we actually put in the code several years ago that talks about this. It says, for purposes of tenants and multi-tenants, only one side of the building is counted for their allotment purposes. You can certainly put signage on the other side, but your allotment, how much you get is only based on one side of the building.
And I'm sure this is a conversation for a different forum, but I don't understand what the public benefit of that is.
Yeah, so the benefit would just be limiting the amount of signage on a building. Obviously, you can break it up if you choose to have more signage or a bigger sign on one side and a little bit smaller on the other. That's up to you. But your allotment is just based on just that one size. As you mentioned, certainly the law could say something different if we wanted to allow something differently.
Because when I look at that building, it appears that the other tenants have signs on both sides. And it
Yeah,
doesn't-
so there is an allowance for corner locations in there that you do get signage based on that additional corner location. And again, like I said, you could choose to break that up on either side, however you want. But the UDO does allow for corner locations to factor in that additional exterior wall.
Yeah, I get that. I just don't, it's almost like, so if you're a middle tenant, it just doesn't make sense to distinguish between a corner unit versus a middle unit if the goal is to have signage so that a business can be successful. So if you just happen to be on the corner, you can have two bigger signs, but if you're in the middle, you have two smaller signs.
Typically, those corner locations, you have more of a facade that is built out in terms of
get that.
windows and accessibility, whereas the other side, you're just looking at the back of a building. So it's just an intent to minimize signage and not give greater allowances for signage for the backs of.
Yeah, I just don't know what the public benefit of that is my point. It just, like I said, it's probably for another forum, but.
So my question is for the petitioner. So the signs you are proposing to exchange, they are already there, existing, and you are exchanging with the exact size of the existing signs?
I'd have to look again. They're very, very similar. I'm not sure if they're exact, but I would consider it negligible difference. We're not talking about doubling the size or even 20% bigger. It's probably within margin of error of 2 to 5%, would be my guess.
Okay, do you have a?
Is that-
Yeah, they are roughly similar.
They're roughly similar?
Yeah.
So we're just, visually, we're not causing any issues. We are just substituting for a similar size sign. We're not enhancing, getting bigger, more distracting.
That's my understanding. Again, in 2021, it seems that only one of the signs was officially permitted. But in terms of what's on the building now and what they're looking to install, it's roughly the same.
But was the plans that they submitted for the permit had two signs on it?
That is what the plans show, but the permit only addresses one of
Okay, so-
the signs.
So there was a mishap there from someone, I guess,
It's
I'm
not clear.
blaming anybody, yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
asking.
we're not sure if there were communications that happened outside of the permit to let the applicant know, hey, you've applied for 2, but we can only approve 1.
Okay.
So in an ideal situation, we would have had them resubmit their rendering and mark out one of the proposed signs, just so the paper trail is clear.
Yeah, so you would be able to, 5 years later, be able to know what was proposed and what was accepted.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the permit, and that's in the board's packet, does list 1 wall sign with the 41.5 square foot, I believe is the number listed.
Were there ever notices of violation for the 2 signs? So it just happened, and it stayed that way?
Yeah, there's no documentation of there being any notices of violations in the past 5 years.
All right, thank you. From John?
Clear, the status quo right now is that they have 2 signs that total 79.74 square feet. And what they're proposing would be, 80? A little bit over 80 square feet. Yeah. Because, it sounds like there's some, the other way to look at it, there's nothing that said that the 2 signs weren't allowed if they were submitted as part of the plan. I'm not saying anybody, it just sounds like it's really unclear as to what happened previously.
So I have a staff question. Eric, so if we are to recommend to allow the signage, then we need to find a peculiarity, correct?
Yes, you would need to make alternative findings for criteria number 2 and number 3.
Could the alternative finding be that they're replacing existing signs?
You would have to relate it, obviously, to a inherent condition about the property itself. So you would have to make findings that are very specific to the property and not, all cases, somewhat self-imposed condition.
So could the peculiarity be that the property would be reducing the signage, therefore potentially reducing the signage size? Or if they want to keep 2, then they have to reduce the signage size. If they want to keep 1, then they have to lose a sign. So therefore, it could be detrimental to their business.
I guess, I would just make a comment. Finding number 3 is a different question that we can come to. But I just don't agree on finding number 2, that there's an adverse impact. If we're talking about a 1 square foot change from the status quo, if there's adverse impacts to surrounding properties, we would know that, right? Even if we denied the variance, I just don't agree with that finding. There's no evidence that there's any adverse impact to the use or value of the surrounding properties when they've been operating with essentially the same size signage for several years. That just doesn't seem accurate to me, but that's just my opinion. Give me a second, and I'll play with this.
Are you guys done with questions for now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Done with questions? All right, so we're going to move on to public comment then. If there's anybody in chambers that would like to speak about this petition, please come forward. If not, can you check online, please? Oh, there's one.
I need to sign in, is that right, or?
Yeah, you sign in and you tell me your name, I'll swear you in. Can you
evening.
state your name?
My name is Betty Rose Nagel. I have no dog in this fight.
All right,
at all.
let me swear you in.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
You have 3 minutes.
okay.
Okay.
As I said, I have no dog in this fight. I know what the site looks like. I know the sign on the front. I know that when you drive by on the street, you see a sign. And I sat here and listened to you discuss the property in the previous case, that the signs were to help guide people using that property to places where they needed to go. And as far as I can tell, that's what this case is about, denying a sign that might help people find what they're looking for. It seemed to me, if I may, that two of the members of the board seemed dubious about the common sense of the objections. I hope the cookie crumbles in the support of the petitioner, because I'm sorry, it just, like a couple of you were saying, it doesn't make sense. It's not in the interest of the business. It's not in the interest of potential customers. It doesn't seem to have caused any problems. I know that's the thin edge of the wedge. Somebody else will come and climb on this and say, yeah, look, you did this, then how about us? But it just seems not to make common sense, and that's all I have to say. I was just sitting there listening to both of those, and I just really couldn't sit and say nothing. So thank you for your time.
I appreciate your comment. Thank you so much. Anybody else?
If there's anybody online that would like to speak to this petition, please use the raise hand function.
So I got another staff question. So what is the consequence of denial?
So consequences of denying it would be that they cannot take the sign down and put up a new one. We did talk about it internally and would allow them to reface it, but in terms of removing it, any new signage that went up would have to be fully compliant.
So that means you'd have to essentially cut the size of the signs almost in half to be able to have two signs.
They would have to adjust it in some capacity, but they'd have to work within the 40
You'd
square
have to
foot.
cut them pretty substantially
Yeah.
to meet that.
Yes.
Because, I mean, for the benefit of whoever's paying attention to this meeting, I mean, this is the kind of challenge that the BZA always has, is that you have to come up with some kind of peculiarity of the property to justify not applying the code, even if it, in some people's opinion, the code doesn't make sense. Because there's probably God knows how many similar buildings around the city of Bloomington. So it's not particularly unique. It's just bad code, in my opinion. But from the business's perspective, I mean, I guess they have to make a choice whether or not how important the new branding is to their business versus the ability to have functionally signage that makes sense. I mean, if these were cut in half, you're not even going to be able to see them. So, I don't know.
Is there anything within the code about a business that you enter from one side and the back side is facing a major public road and it's not an entrance?
Not for signage purposes. Like we said, there is language in here that very specifically that says, for purposes that have buildings that have, frontage with a street on one side and a parking lot on the other, only one side is counted as frontage because.
It just doesn't have a parking lot on the other.
Well, the east side has a parking lot, and then so the west side is obviously College Mall Road.
Correct.
You know, and this exact location, there have been 2 other tenants, both in this facility, or this tenant space, and the one to the south, that both adjusted their signage, so they had slightly smaller signs on College Mall Road and something bigger on the other side, but, you know, they've all worked within what the code allows, so that's always our challenge of, you know, it is possible to use it and have signage. You know, we're not saying you can't have signage on the west side. You just have to make a choice, and certainly we understand that there is a perception that there is a sign there of this size, and they were just replacing it. But you know, regardless of any past confusion or miscommunication on a permit, you know, we have to deal with the law that's in place.
And then what about with showing the, I mean, we have signage outside that shows what stores are inside shopping centers, and this essentially is that sign that's on the west side.
I don't think they have a multi-tenant freestanding sign of any capacity
There's not.
along College Mall Road.
So are you saying that other buildings in this strip mall specifically had to reduce their signs?
Yes, so this exact tenant space, you know, previously had a different use in here. In fact, I think this might be like the 4th use that's been in there. But there was at least a previous use in there that had a smaller sign. Jack's Donuts was in there, had a smaller sign on the west side. And then just tenant space to the south of this was a Century 21 tenant space, and they had a smaller sign on the west side, and then another sign on the east side. So, you know, other entities have used the space and met code.
I struggle with this because of the original, because of the original permit, we'll just call it a mishap, whatever happened with the permit. I struggle with this because the 2 signs are already there and they're existing, and now if you put a smaller, I really struggle with this, to find that there is no peculiarity to the property that we can tell, and we can allow the signage.
Eric, do you have any photos of that side of the building
That's a great question.
that faces College Mall Road?
Yes, we can certainly pull up here just kind of what we have access to from Google Street View. See if I can find that.
Yep, and the trees, and that's what I'm telling you.
Sorry, let me try to see if I
Sure.
can find it.
I appreciate, yeah, no. Is that the one they are at? That is the Xfinity. They are down the road, but you can see from that angle that all those businesses.
I'm so sorry. I had it
Yeah.
on
All
the,
those
didn't
businesses
scroll down to
have
the right building.
signs.
There we go. There you go. So as I mentioned here, you know, this is, I guess, kind of a good view. So you can see previous tenants that were in here. As I mentioned, Jack's Donuts, Century 21, both had signage on the west side. They adjusted the size to fall within the allowance. Obviously, they probably had something a little bit bigger on the east side.
Is that their sign there? I can't.
So their sign, so this is what it looks like currently.
It's a little bigger on Century 21.
Now, if, this is a question for staff, if the size, the signs that they had proposed were the exact size of the existing signs, would we be having this conversation?
Well, so like I said, we talked about it internally, and said we would allow them to reface it, meaning you keep the cabinet box that's there, and you just change out the sign that's in there. But if the sign is completely taken down, anything that goes back up has to obviously meet code. So, we're willing to, I guess, kind of work with them a little bit on acknowledging there's a sign there, allow them to reface it. But, if it comes down and is removed, then, whatever goes back has to meet code.
So I guess I have a question for the petition.
Thank you.
Would you be willing to reface the existing sign?
We're the company that's installing them. I talked to Crumble about that, and they wanted to proceed with all new signs. I think it's just how they do it now.
Is it technically possible to reface it?
Technically, yes, I believe so.
You're the sign maker?
We're not even making the sign. They send it to us and we install it.
You were the
But I'm
installer.
familiar enough with the process to know that you could reface them. I'm guessing their logic is that you wouldn't even know the difference between a new sign and a reface sign. They're so similar.
Yeah, I understand.
And they're probably wanting, I'm guessing, a new one with all new LEDs and power supplies and all the new parts that come with a new sign.
Are those signs lit?
Yes. I'm not confident on that one. I know the new one will be.
Does that change anything, Eric, by having a lit sign?
No, changing the inside electronic component, as long as the cabinet stays the same, in terms
Okay.
of refacing signs and, situations where something is a grandfathered structure, sign specifically, you can reface it as long as the cabinet box stays there. You can change out lights within there, but the box has to stay.
Yeah.
And we don't know if the box has electrical.
Is that usually the same for building signs, or is that, I generally see that for like pylon multi-tenant signs where they're changing panels out. I didn't,
Yes, and for a cabinet sign, for a box sign, changing out the sign, obviously, as you look at the other signs here, things that are specifically letters that you can't really reface, that's not a reface scenario, but situations where it's a box sign, you're just changing out a cabinet face.
Look at it, you can barely. Well, thank you. You may sit down. Do you have any more questions
No.
for staff or petitioner? No? All right, we're back to the BZA for final action. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll try and do this. First, I want to amend finding number 2 and change it to read that adverse impacts to the use and value surrounding properties as a result of the requested variance are not found, and delete the second sentence. And then for finding number 3,
So the peculiarity should be site-specific.
well, I'm just rereading it. It says that strict application of the UDO will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Oh, that's the setup, okay. I'm going to propose an amendment to the proposed finding number 3. deleting "not" in the first sentence so that it reads that the strict application of the terms of the UDO will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property, period. The elevation of this particular building, as well as the landscaping along the frontage of College Mall Road, create a situation where strict application of the UDO sign dimensions would make such signage ineffective, period.
And what is your motion?
And then I would move that we adopt the amended findings and approve the variance.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Let me just make one comment. The reason I mean, I totally appreciate where the staff's coming from on this, but for me, what is kind of dispositive is the notion that we would go along with refacing an existing sign and saying it's good, as opposed to letting them put up a sign that's effectively the status quo in terms of the dimensions. That would be a new contemporary sign that's consistent with their branding. I just don't see how the former versus the latter really achieves any public good. I mean, it just seems like going through a dance to adopt some very strict interpretation of the intent of the UDO that doesn't have any positive practical impacts for anybody. So that's my motion.
All right. I would like to add that to your motion, an amendment that not an amendment, but a condition that the sign will be as the sign that was proposed in this package and nothing different.
Yeah, thank you. That's fine.
I will second the motion.
Roll call, please.
Burrell,
Yes.
Fernandez,
Yes.
Kuzinko.
Yes.
Congratulations. Motion passed. Now we're on to ZR 2026-05-0023, 412 East Wiley Street. May I have the report, please?
Yes, thank you again. Jamie Kreinler, Senior Zoning Planner. So as you said, this is the request at 412 East Wiley Street for conditional use approval to allow for a duplex, and the zoning for the property is residential small lot R3, and the petitioner for this case is Kevin Spicer. So the surrounding properties are also zoned R3, and I have the aerial on the map so you can see the subject property. The subject property currently contains a one-story, single-family home, and this is part of the Bryan Park neighborhood. The property is not designated as a historic site, and it is not subject to any historic regulations. There is an unbuilt section of right-of-way for South Palmer Avenue along the west property line, and that was platted with 36 feet of right-of-way. There's also 12-foot platted alley that runs along the south of the property, and that has at present not been improved, so it's an unimproved alley to the south. On-street parking is allowed along both sides of East Wiley Street, along this frontage from Dunn Street to the east and Washington Street to the west. So the petitioner is proposing to remove the existing residence and develop the site with a new duplex. The proposed residence has been designed with each unit having a separate exterior entrance, with both entrances facing East Wiley Street to the north, and the site plan is shown on the screen. The proposed duplex includes a new two-story structure with 2 3-bedroom, 3-bath dwelling units, and that's the maximum that's allowed by the UDO. The existing driveway on East Wiley Street will be removed, and a new 9-foot wide driveway will be added that connects to a parking area in the rear of the property, and the parking area is accessed via East Wiley. The plan includes 4 parking spaces, which is the maximum that the UDO allows. And the proposed site plan shows 44.5% impervious surface, which is compliant with the maximum impervious surface of 45% in this zoning district. The proposed duplex is set back at the required 15-foot front build-to line along East Wiley Street and South Palmer Avenue, and the required side setback to the east is 10 feet. The required rear setback minimum is 25 feet, and those are all met on the proposed site plan. The city's transportation plan shows South Palmer Avenue is intended as a multi-use path, and a driveway through South Palmer Avenue would not be permitted because this would conflict with a future multi-use path in this area. Since the alley to the south is not improved, the petitioner had the option to improve the alley to the south or access off of East Wiley for their driveway. If the alley had been improved, the UDO would have required that they have alley access, but that's not the case for this site. The city's senior environmental planner visited the site and determined that there is no closed canopy on the site, so those regulations are not applicable. The petitioner is required to add street trees along both East Wiley Street to the north and South Palmer to the west, and that is compliant on the proposed plan. The petition was presented to the Bryan Park and Elm Heights Neighborhood Associations during a joint meeting that took place on May 7th of this year, and that is one of the requirements for a conditional use duplex. In response to feedback received at the neighborhood meeting, the petitioner did make a change to the site plan and revised it to include a 6-foot tall privacy fence on the east side of the lot. That was mentioned at the meeting by at least one of the neighbors, that would help to create a privacy buffer in the area, so that was a change that the petitioner made on their site plan. Staff reviewed the design elements of the proposed duplex and found that the proposal is consistent with the required standards of the UDO. The proposed roof pitch, front porch width and design, front building setback, and vehicle parking access are similar to surrounding properties on the same block face by the staff's analysis. The petition includes a front porch that is typical in terms of depth and width to other front porches and covered entries in the area. And on the screen, you can see an elevation rendering of what's proposed for the duplex. And these are some other elevation drawings that the petitioner submitted. So staff found that the petition meets the use-specific standards in the UDO. The property owner does not have any notices of violation on file. Occupancy of each dwelling unit is subject to the definition of family in the UDO, which is limited to a total of six people or 3 unrelated adults per unit. There are no other duplexes within a 150-foot buffer of the site, so that condition was met. And the City of Bloomington's utility stated that there's adequate capacity in the city sewer and water systems to serve this location. These are the floor plans that were submitted by the petitioner, and the petitioner also included this siding color, what's proposed for the new duplex, which is similar to the existing house that's there now. These are a couple images. I did visit the site with the assistant director as well, and we met with some of the neighbors, and these were pictures that were taken during that site visit, showing the view from East Wiley Street and also a view of the undeveloped alley that's on the right. So that's pretty much the overview, summary of the staff report. The full findings are in the report, and we're happy to go into that. but the department is recommending that the BZA adopt the proposed findings and approve the petition with the 2 conditions that are in the staff report.
Thank you. Can the petitioner come forward, please? Can you state your name?
Kevin Spicer.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you. It pretty much lays out exactly the way they have stated. I guess I will mention that, of course, in our meetings with the neighborhood, there was a few options that they might have had, and there's a couple options that I'm not opposed to, but we worked real hard, and we accomplished that, to not have to ask for any variances. Whether that, yeah, we would like to have more parking. I think maybe the neighborhood would like to have more parking. We'd have had to ask for a variance because it would be more than the 4 that's allowable. So, of course, again, trying to stay within no variances, then we did not ask for more parking. I think another issue you're going to hear this evening is the setback from the building line is only 15 feet. That is a little closer to Wiley than the existing houses. So there again, I'm not opposed to making changes there, but if I'd have made them tonight, I'd have had to ask for a variance to do that. And again, so I wanted to come in clean with absolutely no variances. Those are probably the 2 biggest points, but again, our main goal was to not have to ask for anything other variance, as far as a variance that has already been allowable through that zone.
And you'll have 18 minutes to come back and speak.
Sure. No,
at the end, after we hear the public comments.
For
Okay.
sure.
All right, any questions for staff and the petitioner?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
This is for the staff. I guess it's page 10 of the presentation. There's an image that's labeled View of Undeveloped Alley. There's the chain link fence, couple trees. Is the undeveloped alley the land to I guess the right of the fence?
It's the land behind the house, so it's not the greenway that is, if you're looking at the front of the house, to the right. If you're looking at an aerial map, I think it's the west. That's not the alley that is referenced in the photo. It's the alley that's actually behind the house and that connects off of the greenway of Palmer
Okay.
Avenue.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out where the alley.
Anything else from you? No?
Not this time.
Okay, so at this point, petitioner, just have a seat, and then we're going to proceed to public comment. So if you're going to speak tonight, approach the podium and write down your name, and then I'll swear you in, and then you have 3 minutes to speak.
Flavia, it is 5 minutes. 3 minutes is for the expedited agenda public
Item.
comment period.
All right, I don't want to rob you of your time speaking, so you have 5 minutes. Your name, please?
Thank you. My name is Jane St. John.
Jane, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, proceed.
Thank you. My comments will take less than 3 minutes. I have, like many of us here, a vested interest in this neighborhood. I live at 408 East Wiley Street, which is the house immediately to the west of the house in discussion. I have lived there for 32 years. My parents lived in the house across the street from me at 403 East Wiley for 30 years, and my 94-year-old dad still lives there. I own the house across the street from me and rent it to a young couple. I have always enjoyed living near students, and I am strongly in favor of more density in this neighborhood so many people can enjoy it as I have. I'm not opposed to density. However, while we have this opportunity to consider compatibility with the neighborhood in which this duplex could be placed, I would just say that density does not have to equal monstrosity. According to the Monroe County Assessor's Office, all of the houses on the block face are single-story. This duplex is not. It is not similar in shape, size, and design to the majority of structures on the same block face. It is disproportionate and oversized and not consistent with the neighborhood design. Others after me will speak to the already overwhelmed infrastructure on the street, especially as it relates to parking and traffic, so I will just add my second to their comments, and I've added my signature to a couple of their letters. Thank you for your service on this board and for your consideration today.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Yes, can you state your name, please?
John Lawrence.
John, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. So good evening. My name's John Lawrence, and I live in the Bryant Park neighborhood. I prepared a one-page exhibit comparing the proposed duplex with every existing home in the block face. The staff has popped it up so you can see. It's covered up a little bit by text, but the exhibit contains every existing home in the block face. Nothing has been omitted. The proposed duplex is shown at the top for comparison. There are 7 homes. The city has chosen to allow duplexes as a conditional use, and that means every proposal must satisfy the standards adopted in the UDO. One of those standards is especially important in this case. It's UDO 20.03.030 B3C2. Requires that the design elements of a duplex be similar in general shape, size, and design to the majority of existing single-family or duplex structures on the same block face. And this is the block face. As you look at this exhibit, I ask you to compare the proposed building, not individual architectural details, but the overall building form, massing, and size. The homes share a common pattern. According to the Monroe County Assessor's Office, and it's obvious looking at the images, they're all one-story single-family homes of relatively modest scale and massing. The proposed building, by contrast, is a new 2-story duplex containing 6 bedrooms with 6 bathrooms. Its overall size, height, and mass are substantially different from the prevailing pattern of development on this block face. That distinction matters because the ordinance does not ask whether the roof pitch is compatible, whether the porch resembles neighboring porches, or whether similar siding materials are used. It asks whether the building, considered as a whole, is similar in general shape, size, and design to the majority of existing homes on the block face. At the BZA hearing this past February regarding a duplex on South Henderson, several board members expressed concerns about the proposal, but it indicated they lacked a finding of fact upon which to base a denial. Findings of fact are how the board explains its decision and demonstrates that it has applied the ordinance to the evidence before it. Because of that, I have prepared a proposed finding of fact based on the ordinance and the evidence in the record, including the photographs shown on this exhibit. I'd like to read it into the record. So my proposed finding of fact: the board finds that the petition does not satisfy UDO 20.03.030 B3C2, which requires that the design elements of a duplex dwelling be similar in general shape, size, and design to the majority of existing single-family or duplex structures on the same block face. The evidence in the record, including the photographs of the block face presented during the hearing, demonstrates that the majority of existing homes are one-story, single-family residences of relatively modest scale and massing. The proposed structure is a full two-story duplex containing 6 bedrooms and represents a substantially larger building formed than the prevailing pattern of development on the block face. While certain individual design elements, such as roof pitch, porch design, or exterior materials may resemble surrounding homes, the ordinance requires that the design of the duplex considered as a whole be similar in general shape, size, and design to the majority of existing structures on the block face. Similarity in isolated architectural features does not establish compliance when the overall building form is substantially different. Therefore, based on the evidence in the record, the board cannot make the affirmative finding required by UDO 20.03.030B3C2. Thank you for your time and your consideration. I'll provide each board member with a printed copy of the exhibit and the proposed finding of fact for your consideration during deliberations.
Thank you. If you're going to speak, go ahead and sign in. You state your name, please.
Jan Sorby.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Jan Sorby, and I live in the Bryan Park neighborhood. Tonight, I'd like to discuss how I believe the use-specific design requirement was intended to be interpreted and applied. However, I'm not sure that the use-specific design requirement was even mentioned in the staff report. There are 3 questions, I think, for the board. First, what does the ordinance require? The ordinance says the design elements of a new duplex must be similar in general size, shape, and design to the majority of the house on the block face. Then it identifies 4 elements the board must evaluate: roof pitch, front porch width and depth, front building setback, and vehicle parking access. The ordinance contains 2 parts: a compatibility standard and a list of design elements. The compatibility standard is the goal. The 4 design elements are how the board determines whether that goal has been met. The 4 design elements are not separate tests. They are part of the ordinance overall requirement. Second, why was this ordinance written this way? I believe the purpose was to allow new duplexes while ensuring they remain compatible with the neighborhood built established pattern. That balance, allowing additional housing while respecting neighborhood context, is an important part of the city goals. This ordinance is not just a simple checklist. Take roof pitch, for example. 2 buildings can have exactly the same roof pitch, but still have very different roof forms, massing, and overall appearance from the street. Matching the roof pitch doesn't necessarily mean that the design of the roof is similar. The same idea applies to the front setback. The ordinance requires that the new duplex setback is similar to the majority of the houses on the block face. But in this case, plan staff required the minimum R3 setback of 15 feet, placing this duplex much closer to the street than the established pattern. Just 5 months ago, as John Lawrence was saying, the duplex at 1004 South Henderson, plan staff used the same use-specific design standards that are required to align the new duplex with the established setback pattern on the block face. Also, this proposal uses nearly every inch of available space on the lot. I can't help but wonder whether that's why the setback requirement is being interpreted differently in this case. If that is true, then the ordinance is changing to fit the building instead of the building being designed to fit the ordinance. I don't think the same ordinance should be interpreted one way in one case and another way in the other case. Finally, how should the board apply this ordinance? I encourage you to consider the established pattern on the block face and then determine whether the proposed duplex is similar to that pattern in general shape, size, and design, as the ordinance requires. Based on this analysis, I do not believe the proposed satisfies the ordinance requirements, and I respectfully ask the board to deny this application. Thank you for your time and service.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak?
My name is Corey Gerhardt.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the whole truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
I live 2 doors down from 412 East Wiley. I already detailed the ways in which this submitted plan fails to meet the conditional use requirements in the letter I submitted for your packet. But during my public comment time tonight, I'd like to take issue with 2 statements made in the staff report. The report repeatedly says things to the effect of on-street parking is allowed on both sides of the street on this block of East Wiley. That statement is deeply, though I assume unintentionally, misleading. I would say parking is allowed on either side of this block of East Wiley. No section of this block has an improved street surface that's wide enough to legally accommodate 2 cars parked across from each other, even 2 compact sedans. We've been advised by parking enforcement to report any such situations because without the mandated 12 feet of available roadway, emergency services and waste removal often can't use that street. So the actual on-street parking capacity on this block of East Wiley is around half of what staff seems to suggest in their report. Number 2, in stating the petitioner could utilize on-street parking along this property if they desire in the future, the staff report also reads as though these street spaces are somehow reserved for residents of particular properties, and that's not the case. There's no reason to assume these spaces would be available, especially when you consider that if anyone even parks across the street from 412, the spaces directly in front of it become unusable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Vonderschmidt.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Councilwoman Piedmont Smith noted in a letter that should be in your packet recommending denial of the conditional use, the width of the street between the 300 and 500 blocks of East Wiley is in places insufficient to allow a 12-foot travel lane when on-street parking is being utilized. There are no curbs or sidewalks, forcing pedestrians to walk in the travel lane. At the northwest corner of the petitioner's lot at 412 East Wiley, the existing pavement is 22.5 feet wide. The right-of-way is 40 feet, meaning that 17 feet approximately, or over 40% of the city right-of-way is unimproved. The entirety of East Wiley Street from Walnut to Highland except for the 300 through 500 block of East Wiley, are built with curbs and sidewalks utilizing the full 40-foot right-of-way. I'm not against increased density. East Wiley Street has provided 11 or 12 new bedrooms in the last several years built on vacant properties. But these have stressed existing street infrastructure to accommodate needed parking. Adding another 3 bedrooms probably won't relieve existing parking issues and will only make another section of the street less safe for pedestrian use. Per the assessor's office, of the 7 properties in this block face, this would be the only 2-story dwelling. Situated 25 feet closer to the right-of-way than the adjacent structure, it would be the only dwelling on the block face with a gable facing the street, a 2nd-story gable, emphasizing the height of the duplex and towering over the streetscape. The proposed structure is not in character with the existing block face, is not similar in size or scale to existing dwellings on the block face, exacerbates parking issues due to the narrowness of the street, worsening already stressed on-street parking. It removes an existing single-family home, which is discouraged per the UDO, and replaces it with a duplex that is essentially student housing. 3 bedrooms and baths per side with a party kitchen. As proposed, this dwelling is not a dwelling families will find affordable or desirable. I thank you for your time and urge consideration to deny the petition.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm shorter than he is. Julie Vonderschmidt.
Julie, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. It's also my opinion.
Thank you.
All right, members of the board, I stand before you tonight to exhort you to deny the conditional use request for 412. Let's be completely honest about what's actually happening here. This is not innovative, affordable, sustainable infill housing on a vacant lot. It is a predatory demolition project. The petitioner is actively tearing down a perfectly good, albeit uncared for, existing single-family home in the heart of a core neighborhood, only to replace it with a high-density commercial rental property. This structure is designed strictly to be a rental with no path to owner occupancy. I don't know many young people who can afford a $675,000 first home. Do you? Because that's what the apartment home at 506 East Wiley sold for. If you approve this petition, you are not just granting a variance, you are granting a permanent zoning mistake. You are locking local workers and young families out of ever owning a home on this parcel of Bloomington land. Bloomington's lack of affordable, attainable homes is actively pushing, this is from the HT, young professionals and families out of our area. There are a number of reasons that zoning laws exist, and I'd like to think that 2 of them are protecting the fundamental right of individual home ownership and widening the opportunities of everyday citizens to enjoy it. True property rights belong to the individuals who want to buy a home, build equity, and invest their lives in a neighborhood. But when you approve pure rental conversions, you do the exact opposite. You restrict the right of home ownership to a select class of wealthy developers and off-site landlords, while entirely stripping that opportunity from the local workforce. You are narrowing the path to the American dream in Bloomington, not widening it. Furthermore, this directly violates the very laws you are sworn to uphold. Under UDO Section 20.02.020C, the explicit mandate of the R3 district is to protect and enhance our established residential neighborhoods by increasing the viability of owner-occupied stock and, increasing the viability of owner-occupied housing. That same section explicitly states that the conversion of existing housing to more intense land uses is discouraged. Tearing down a home to build a permanent rental duplex is the literal antithesis of what we're here to do. Let's focus for a minute on the human cost of this decision. As we were recently warned in a Herald Times opinion piece, thank you, Mr. Fernandez, Bloomington's economic future is on the line because we are failing to retain our career-focused people. We have the jobs and the amenities, but we are losing our young professionals, our teachers, our healthcare workers, our early career researchers, and our entrepreneurs. They want to stay here. They want to exercise their right to own real estate. They want to volunteer in their community, get to know their neighbors, maybe send their kids to school. They want to enjoy the quality of life we offer in Bloomington and put down deep, permanent roots in places like Bryant Park. But they can't. Why? Because of speculative projects exactly like this one. The Bryant Park neighborhood is already heavily saturated with high turnover student rentals. When you allow developers to convert current permanent housing stock into apartment homes, you allow them to drive land values sky high based on predatory per-bedroom rent pricing. A local young professional earning a Bloomington salary simply cannot compete with the student renter market. You are allowing commercial interests to price out local individuals and families. If you approve the conditional use under UDO section 20.06.050B, you are failing the neighborhood character criteria. You are choosing a revolving door of transient occupants over community stability. You are choosing the short-term profits of a commercial enterprise, an absent developer, over widening the opportunity for individual real estate ownership for our local workforce. During our meeting, that Zoom meeting,
Sorry, you're out of time.
Oh, dang it. I have some good stuff yet.
I
I'll have somebody
appreciate
else
your
finish
words.
my
Thank you.
thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else?
Hi, everyone.
Can you state your name, please?
Jody Adkins.
Jody, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Okay. I live at 401 East Dodge Street. My home was on the grid that you had posted earlier. And I just recently learned about this via the postal mail a few weeks ago when receiving notification. So I fully support and agree with what others have said. My notes are a little more informal than what they've presented. You mentioned the unimproved alleyway that dead ends, well, that runs behind the proposed development. My home is on the other end. There's an easement that runs westward where the dead-end alley at Palmer occurs, and my house is the third house. The dead end, it might help if you had the grid on the slide. I could describe that better, but basically the easement dead ends behind my home. And I'm a little concerned about the parking. I know that the parking would be on Wiley Street, but my experience with rentals of this size, and particularly if it is to become a student rental, as we assume it might be, students can be very creative about where they park, and they might decide to park in the dead end on Palmer. And I could see them blocking the easement, which is actually the only access that I have to my backyard, my driveway, and my garage. And this has actually happened previously with people just in the condition of the neighborhood now because parking is such an issue. And I also wanted to mention that in this easement, this is where Duke, AT&T, and various other service companies, sorry, I've lost track of my notes, but this is where they would access the power lines and the poles that service many, many homes in the neighborhood. So I'm just concerned that I won't have any access to my driveway on, say, a Saturday night, Little Five weekend, a party night, if there are people, more than 6 cars parked at this home and our student rentals. And it's just concerning because the parking is already such an issue, particularly on Wiley Street. It's essentially become a one-way road where it meets Henderson. It's unsafe to pull westward onto Wiley now because of the rental on that corner. So I just wanted to mention that, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Anybody else?
My name is Kim Vint.
Hi, Kim. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I just want to remind the board, some of you were there when 506 and 510 were being decided upon. I just found it really odd that the majority, due to parking, affordability, and that the fact that it didn't meet the UDO standard of matching with the neighborhood. You guys, there was like so many of you that didn't want to approve it. There was one board member somehow decided that he just looked at you and you see, it was kind of like, oh, we have to approve it. And then all of you changed your mind. I just found it very odd that that was approved. And like everybody else said, the one entrance to the west on Wiley, you're lucky if you can get through it. There's one house that Bamba owns, another house that Parker Management, 2 houses that Parker Management own. There's driveways, big driveways. They don't park in them. You've got truck after truck after truck after truck after truck on both sides parking in the street. So I just avoid that. You can't really use it anymore. And now the other end of Wiley, because of the duplex that should never have been approved to begin with, it's a one-way street. You can't get through there either. And I just wanted to add that. But anyway, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Sarah St. John Wolford.
Hi, Sarah. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
As I said, my name is Sarah St. John Wolford. I am the Housing Solutions Director at Habitat for Humanity, and I would like to second the concerns of the public. I grew up at 408 East Wiley, and I was lucky enough to be able to purchase another house in the Bryan Park neighborhood as a young professional because houses like Mr. Rice's, now currently owned by Mr. Spicer, were not demolished. I'm going to spend the rest of my time reading the rest of Julie's notes. If you approve this conditional use under UDO section 20.06.050B, you are failing the neighborhood character criteria. You are choosing a revolving door of transient occupants over community stability. You are choosing the short-term profits of a commercial enterprise, an absent developer, over widening the opportunity for individual real estate ownership for our local workforce. When I asked the petitioner, Mr. Spicer, when Julie asked, when he last actually walked Wiley Street, his response was he'd driven by. That is the definition of an absent developer. Do not let our core neighborhoods be hollowed out by people who only view our community through a car window. Protect the right of individual home ownership, uphold the strict intent of R3 zone, protect the integrity of Bryan Park, and vote no on this permanent conditional use petition. Thank you.
Thank you. State your name, please.
Andrew Ruff.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
First of all, I want to recognize and acknowledge my appreciation for the work of staff. Staff's hardworking, and I value their input, their opinion, and their expertise and professionalism. But in this case, I have to say I just fundamentally disagree with that with a recommendation to approve this, that is consistent with what the UDO says and what the standards of the code are in this case. It's already been said many times by area residents that this is inconsistent with the area. And I am in complete agreement that it's not the code. The standards aren't written to say, oh, well, the roof pitch is close enough. It is a general compatibility and consistency with the neighborhood purpose. And if you were to approve this, if the approval was given for this, it sort of undermines the credibility. It's not just a failure of the neighborhood. Some of the neighbors said this would be a failure of the neighborhood. It would be, in my view, more of a failure for the whole community, because the reason these duplexes the code was set so that they come to the BZA was so that real human beings could look at it and make a judgment about, is this consistent? Does this fit in? You know, we want density, but we want to do it in a way that doesn't dramatically impact the setting of that residential area. And this clearly does. If you were living there or even walking through there and you see that opposed to everything else that you see in that area, you're going to say, whoa, who dropped that thing there? So I really believe that it's important for the whole process, and for all, actually not just the BZA process of approving a conditional use for a Plex, but just for the trust in government and the faith in that people in the community would have about the processes and about the code and about the fairness and objectivity of the application of standards and rules. I just really think that you need to step back and realize your responsibility is to look at this, think about what the code says, think about this compatibility requirement, this fundamental underlying general concept, because it will help in the future this whole idea of Plex, of approving density. Staff, in their enthusiasm for duplexes and for density, increasing density, is admirable and understandable. But if we have things like this happen and undermine the community's trust, you're going to have far more difficulty in the future getting buy-in from the public for increased ways to get increased density in these existing neighborhoods, because they'll see what's happened and they'll say, and they'll push back strongly. So I really plead with you to not approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
Hi, my name is Tatiana Moyer.
Hi, Tatiana, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Thank you.
I do.
Go ahead, please.
I'm a resident of the neighborhood. I didn't prepare any notes. One thing I would like you to, not one thing, but to mention again, is the safety of the people who live in our neighborhood. I live about a block away. I walk this block almost every day on the, after work to downtown. That street is very narrow. And like somebody said, you can park on one side and have a car pass by, and you don't feel safe. We have children, we have old people walking safely as much as we can right now. With the additional building, additional duplex in the span of 2 blocks, several people mentioned there's another duplex that was built, I don't know, a year ago, 6 months ago. It is a hazard to go in from Henderson into Wiley and from Wiley out. Every time I avoid that turn since that duplex came in. I drive to 1 block up, 1 block down, because that duplex has cars parked very close to Henderson, very hard to pass by. We have another on the other side. Again, parking is a big problem. It's a narrow street. It's not safe. Our kids, we have kids playing on that street, running around, and so far feeling safe somewhat. With the additional duplex, if I had young children, I wouldn't let them go there on that part of that block. You have to understand, we have a culture of neighborly existence, and the proposed duplex is not neighborly. It does not take into consideration many of the things that my neighbors mentioned. So I would like you to consider the safety of the people who live there. When we have a neighborhood meeting with I don't know, representative of the city, my husband walked down towards the meeting on that narrow street and almost got knocked down by a car passing. And that is 1 person, 1 car. So the safety of people who live in our neighborhood, please consider it. Please deny the petitioner. And please listen to people who live in this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in chambers that would like to speak?
Hi, my name is Kyle Parker.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
All right. This is my first time ever being in one of these meetings, so I hope I don't say something I'm not supposed to. I'm a resident of the Bryant Park neighborhood, and I've been for several years now. And, it kind of seems like we're trying to balance here, the rights of an investor to maximize how much money they make versus the rights of the residents who are here and, just want to protect the character of their neighborhood. And, you clearly have heard from a lot of those residents today, including myself. I mean, we love this neighborhood, and we want to protect it. We want to enjoy it. And I don't know, personally, or maybe some others, like maybe we feel a little, we chafe at the idea or maybe feel a little violated by the idea that something that we love is just maybe an investment opportunity or a piggy bank for somebody else. So I don't know, just kind of putting some words out there. I do want to go on record saying I agree with a lot of the comments made today. I walk my dogs on Wiley Street every day. You know, we've seen what happens to the street, you know, capacity with the duplex that already went in on Wiley. And, you know, I think there's a picture in the packet somewhere of the cars lining the street. You know, I have a concern that that would happen again. And, you know, maybe is the character of the neighborhood destroyed with, you know, one duplex? Maybe not 2, maybe not 3, but, you know, where's that line at? So I think that's why we're here today, you know, voicing our concerns about the direction we see things are heading. And is this the camel that breaks the straw that breaks the camel's back? Who knows? Maybe we're not sure, but, you know, we need to, you know, take the opportunity to speak for what we think is important when we have the opportunity. So with that said, I'll ask you to agree with the others in the decision about the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on chambers that would like to speak? If there's no one else, can you look online, please?
If there is anybody online that would like to speak to this petition, please use the raise hand function and we can recognize you. I'm not seeing anybody online.
Okay. So this will be the end of our public comment. We're back to the board for if you have any questions after hearing the public, or if you have any questions for staff or the petitioner. Any comments, this is the time.
Hey, I have a question for staff. What's the setback currently? I'm just
The
curious.
front building setback, it's actually a build-to line, so it has to be, a new house has to be at that 15-foot from the property line for the front.
So it's 15 feet from the property line,
Yes,
not the center of the road.
correct. In this case here, Wiley is designated as a neighborhood residential
Yeah.
street, and so in that situation, the setback is measured from the existing property line.
I notice here that in front of that lot, there's a right-of-way. Is that the city right-of-way? I mean, I'm looking at the map here and I'm seeing,
Yeah, so their survey that's in the packet, you know, shows the platted 40-foot right-of-way.
Okay.
And then so that shows where that property line and right-of-way line falls. And so they're measuring the setback from that right-of-way, which is their property line.
so the measurement, the front of the house, sorry, just want to make sure here. So the house will sit 15 feet from the lot line,
Yes,
not from the beginning of the road.
correct.
So it will be 40 feet plus 15 feet?
From this, well, so it'll be, I mean, just looking at the survey, there's 15 feet-ish.
15 feet-ish.
15 to 12 feet, 10 feet or whatever from the
So it'll be
property line to
30
the edge of the
feet
pavement.
from, yeah, kind of 30 feet from the road, correct?
Yes, approximately.
I mean, approximate, of course. Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out, because I'm like, wait, the face will be too forward. Okay.
I think the existing house that's there too is roughly 15 feet from the property line too, if that helps. Of course, I just did a.
The one that will be demolished on
Yes.
412?
Yeah, that's an estimate
Okay.
based on the GIS and measuring, but it seems to be roughly 15 feet.
Okay, so the face of the duplex will start roughly at the same, where the existing house is?
That's what I'm seeing based on the GIS.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
And I have a second question. So the UDO rules are 4 parking spaces in the back?
Yeah, it's limited to a maximum of 2 per unit, so that's a total of 4 for the duplex is the maximum that's allowed.
In your opinion, is there room for more spaces if more parking was available in the back?
They are close to their maximum impervious surface because that's limited at 45%, so that's something that they would need to address. It's possible if they improved the alley to the south instead of having a driveway off Wiley that may reduce the overall impervious surface and allow for more parking, but I don't know precisely without doing those
No, you
calculations.
answered my question. Thank you.
All right. I have another question, and when we're talking block face, is it specifically to that block, or is it blocks around?
So we looked at, and this is defined in the UDO, so that's what we were basing it off of, the block face of South Dunn Street to the east, and then, is it South Grant? South Grant to the west. So that was the block face that was evaluated. We included all the way to South Grant because South Palmer Avenue is not actually a street, and block face is defined as to the nearest adjoining streets.
Sorry, I'm looking at every house here in that block face. All right, any more questions from the board?
No.
Questions for the petitioner?
No.
I'll entertain a motion or thoughts or comments. Yes, he still has 18 minutes, correct? The petitioner, how many minutes does he have?
Yeah, they've got just a little bit over 18 minutes if they want to add anything.
If you'd like to add something, you are already, remember, you're still under oath.
Sure, absolutely. I guess a couple things I just mentioned, of course, things that we've heard here this evening, but, you know, I know that there's been a lot of these duplexes built around town, definitely in older neighborhoods, whether that's over off of East 3rd Street, or there's one up the street, you know, there's one block that we know in the 500 block, some over off of Kinser Pike. My point is, all of, you know, the not downtown, but the inner area are definitely older areas, and so all of those areas were mainly one-story houses, whether that's on the east side of town or the west side of town. And my point is, there's a lot of other two-story duplexes going up all over town, and they're also in older general neighborhoods that are one stories. Again, likewise, the one that's just up the street from this one in the 500 block.
Any specific?
So we hear the word about block face, you know.
No, I had a question. Any specific thing you want to address that you heard from the public?
No, it's just general stuff. You know what I mean? We talk about safety. There's lots of rentals in that area, not just mine, and I don't know that there's been any, you know, it's a university town. You know what I mean? I don't know that there's any one specific thing that could point that just because you have a rental, I think maybe there's even people here that have rentals that makes them unsafe. You know, so I heard safety a lot. We want to make sure ours is safest too. No one wants anything that's unsafe.
Sure.
The other thing, as far as back to the block front, you know, we did in meeting, of course, with planning, we kept our roof pitch going the same east-west along Wiley like the other houses. Yeah, we did put a little dormer on the front just to make it look, so it wouldn't look cookie cutter to the one that was already built, you know, down the street. But we did take all that in effect. Granted, it's a two-story, you know, I mean, it is what it is, but we did take all the other items into consideration. And again, I go back, you know, we stayed within the UDO guidelines, and I'm not asking for one variance in any direction for anything, just because we tried to get it to make it fit, and we did. So, and you just can't make that fit in a ranch style. It just won't work. So, and that's the reason why all these around town, this is not the first one. There's a bunch of them, and you know they are. They're all 2 stories.
Yes. Anything else?
Yep.
You're okay then?
Yep,
Okay.
thanks.
All right, we're back to the board. Some decision, comments, or a motion? Are you crafting a motion there?
I'll just say, wait,
Go ahead.
John's looking up something. Thank you for everybody that came to speak and your passion about your neighborhood. It's appreciated, that the love for your neighborhood.
I'm just struggling with the consistency here. I mean, the scale is radically, in my opinion, different than the rest of that block. And I'm having a hard time with the adequate facilities requirement because of there's no sidewalks. It's pretty narrow.
It would be essentially double the biggest house on the street.
There are 2-story homes around, and you can look on the map as well in what she talked about. Can you tell me again, it was Grant, Wiley, Dunn, and Dodds? Is that the block face is that where you look?
Yes, from Dunn Street to the east to Grant Street to the west, along the south side of Wiley. So again, you know, the use-specific standards talk about roof pitch. You know, a building shall be similar in general shape, size, and design with the following elements: roof pitch, front porch width and depth, front building setback, and parking access. You know, so as Mr. Spicer indicated, you know, he's oriented the roofs to slope toward the street, similar to all of the houses along here. You know, it is a pitched roof. It is not a flat roof design. So in that capacity, it is similar to the existing structures along that block face. He's incorporated front porches. There's a mix, you know, as we talked about in the staff report, there is a mix of front porches along here. Some have them, some have nothing. But he has included those that have a similar typical width and depth to what you'll see in the neighborhood as well as on other duplexes. Vehicular access comes from the street along Wiley, similar to all the other structures along here. So from the application of the use-specific standards, it is staff's interpretation and application. You know, this is something that we've talked about a lot in duplexes of, it's not measuring, the use-specific standards. They're not talking about the height of a building. It's talking about the roof pitch design, very basic elements. And so as we have applied this in numerous situations, the orientation of the roof, having a pitched roof as opposed to a modern house with a flat roof, which is certainly not a compatible design, or similar, unless you're in a completely modern neighborhood. Those have been the most basic elements that we have looked at and applied in terms of the review of the use-specific standards.
And that's what I wanted to hear, that height is not a standard specific. Excuse me. You speak when you go to the podium, okay? So it's, we shouldn't have participation from where? Yeah, so that's what I was trying to figure out, because there are other two-story homes in any area. Okay. Anything else there, John?
I think, this is my complete personal opinion, I don't mind the duplex. To me, it is just the 6 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms and the size of the duplex that I'm struggling with. However, there's no peculiarity, there's no.
Yeah,
Everything's been approved by the UDO, except that it's a duplex.
Well, if there are no other comments or questions for staff, I'll entertain a motion.
Just to clarify one more time, if I read, the code says that, how are we defining block face? I mean, how far are we going?
Yep, so there is a very specific definition of the UDO of block face, and it says that portion of a block adjacent and parallel to the abutting public street and normally extending from one intersecting street to the other. So in this case here, the streets that are on the ground are Dunn Street to the east, to Grant Street to the west, and along the south side of Wiley.
And I pulled up the aerial map that does demonstrate that, if that's helpful to the board.
Well, I guess just so we can get down to it, I will make a motion to, let me look at the staff report. I move that we adopt the staff's proposed findings and approve the petition with the conditions as set forth in the staff report.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Burrell,
Yes.
Fernandez,
No.
Kutsenko,
No.
All right. Motion fails.
Yep.
So I entertain another motion then.
Do we have to?
We have to.
Yes, there does need to be some action from the board, either approval, denial, or continuance.
But if you vote no and it's rejected, isn't that de facto a denial?
No, you would need to vote to deny it and then have
Yeah,
the
you
court.
vote to approve.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 votes does not make a,
Oh,
It
right.
has to be unanimous.
We'd have to be unanimous, yep.
Voting for a continuance,
Yeah.
what would that do?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, what we would do, voting for continuance, how are we going to get anywhere?
right, so that would be where you would make comments to the petitioner to possibly incorporate changes between this hearing and the next one and continue it with that intention, but there does need to be action.
Yes, correct.
I guess what troubles me about it is scale, and I know you're looking at that block face. That's an issue. I mean, and I mean no disrespect to Mr. Spicer or anyone in that business. I just think that we see all these duplexes and they're all rentals, and duplexes don't have to be rentals. When we talk about the housing issues in Bloomington, that missing middle can include owner-occupied missing middle structures as well. It just seems like we're making it harder to increase density with the path we're on, and we need to increase density. The size of lots is a challenge in this neighborhood, which makes it difficult too. I don't think, I mean, there's just the infrastructure in that neighborhood is really, it doesn't really accommodate higher density with the lack of sidewalks and some of the narrow streets. It just seems kind of problematic in terms of maintaining kind of character. So I'm not sure, what that means in terms of a continuance.
Eric, so what can it be built by right on this lot that they wouldn't even have to come in front of the public?
Bigger house.
I mean, in essence, a single-family house is one of the few permitted or some variation of that.
Yeah, but how large?
I mean, anything that would meet the setback requirements and the impervious surface coverage.
So you could end up with the same square footage of home?
Same or bigger.
Exactly. So you could put an $800,000 home there in this lot. You could.
Sure, I mean, like I said, the setbacks and impervious surface guide that. So, the development that is shown on the lot now in terms of the size of the building and parking area represents, the maximum impervious surface coverage that could be achieved. So imagine filling that with a building, and that's what it would be.
Yes, and it could be two-story. It could be the same size as this, what he's proposing.
Sure, could be a 3-story. The maximum
Exactly.
height, I think, is 40 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, you could, yeah, but I mean, if someone's going to build a large single family home to live in it, it's probably going to have a garage. It's highly unlikely it's going to have 6 bedrooms. I mean, I know theoretically you could, but I just think in terms of practical, if it's going to be a rental, it can't have 6 bedrooms. So I'm just not sure you could definitely build a bigger home, that's for sure, you know.
I'll speak from being the renter on the board. I'm all for duplexes. I'm always like the first to go to bat for a duplex. This seems quite different to me. And just the neighborhood, and it almost feels like you're slotting something in on a Lego thing that doesn't quite match.
Just a second, please. Can he come back? I think his time,
If you ask a question,
if we ask a question, yes.
Can the question be, can we return to the podium?
You can ask a question.
Return to-
I think, you know, again, I think we keep talking about a duplex, and we talk about a duplex, and of course, a lot of them are 2 stories. This one is no different than one that was approved here a little over a year ago. Of course, it was over 150 feet, but not a lot over. So I guess my question to you is what's the difference between what I have and what was approved a year ago? Again, now go in different, you know, I know there's all kinds of, you know, other locations where these duplexes are going up all over the place. What's the difference? And they got approved right here. What's the difference between those and what I've done? There's no difference. The house in the 500 block is probably even bigger. I know they even got variances. I asked for no variances. So I don't understand how you can deny mine and approve all the others. Don't get it. Yes.
Where's the other duplex?
506 Wiley. It's just a few feet away.
So there is more density.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for either a continuance so we can continue this discussion and come to a next meeting and go over this again, or we can, if you come up with a motion, John, that,
Since we have 3 members and we're going to have to be unanimous,
Yeah.
it just seems like I would move that we do a continuance till we have the full board present.
so if we do a continuance, he comes back, but you need to have what you want to see from him in the next meeting. He can't just continue, just to continue. You have to have some guidelines, some guidance to the petitioner.
I hear well, if that's what's required, I would move that we continue to see if we can continue conversations between staff and petitioner to scale back the size of the units.
Anything else you want to address, for him to address?
Yeah, I agree. I would like the full board
Yeah, if it's 2
here as well
bedrooms.
to represent.
Did you hear it, Kevin? Can you repeat it a little
I
louder?
guess I would just move that we continue to the next BZA meeting, and in the interim, see if there's an opportunity to scale back the number of bedrooms.
A continuance, it doesn't kill your petition. You're still in play. And next time when you come, if there's any design changes from what it was presented today, there's going to be more people here represented as well. You will have a better chance to have a... Can you answer that question? Does the number of bedrooms meet the UDO?
Yes, it's limited to a maximum of 3 per unit.
Could you come to the podium, sorry, because it needs to be recorded, sorry.
So again, the whole goal was to meet every requirement, so we had to ask for no variances, so I'm not asking for a bedroom variance, I'm not asking for setback variance, I'm not asking for any variance, so I met every UDO requirement that there is, whether it's parking, bedrooms, baths, and that's the reason why I said a minute ago. So now you're turning me down. You approved the one up the street, and it's just like this one. And so now we're going to change the rules. If that's fine, but then we need to change the UDO that doesn't allow 3 bedrooms. So none of these others all over town are going to be 3 bedrooms and or larger if they're in a different zone. So if we want less bedrooms, I'll do that, but we need to change the UDO, so I would have never came here with 3 bedrooms if that's not what the UDO said. So now
I just want to be clear, the UDO does not say there's a minimum of 3 bedrooms, it's a maximum.
Right. And I met that. Correct. So that's what I'm saying. If the UDO needs to be changed that there's, so the maximum is not 3. If that's it.
See, that's the complication of the, that we have, John, with the conditional use. Because he's following everything that the UDO requires. He's not asking for anything outside of what the UDO has imposed. So then we're telling him that
I agree. I understand that.
Yeah.
I also, the code also says that, we have to determine that it, generally isn't similar, it's similar in shape, size, and design with the majority of the existing single-family homes, and that's not a, automatic kind of yes, no. It's a interpretation, it's a judgment. And I'm having a hard time saying my interpretation of that is different than the staff's. And, it's not something that I think it's not like a mathematical formula. It's an opinion, it's a judgment.
But as we talked about, as far as the roof design, porch designs, all of that, meets all that. So that's fine. If you want to set this precedence, and that's fine. But man, you better make sure it goes all the way through for the next one, because it's if we're changing it, then we got to change it for everybody. One of the big things I keep hearing about is because it's a 2-story, because there's not a 2-story in that block. So if we're going to change it, we need to change it for everybody.
Thank you, Kevin.
Well, yeah, everyone on the board and the staff has heard my rants about this part of the code before, so I won't repeat it. But I have problems with it. I agree.
If it was changing, I would have been.
Okay. Do we need to make a motion for continuance?
Well, I believe Mr. Fernandez did, and I believe that Mrs. Kacinko seconded it, so we just need a roll.
And what, are you still remaining with the same?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm in agreement with that.
See, I have a hard time with that because we're asking him to do something that we don't prescribe in a UDO.
Which is why I think it'll be helpful with the additional members of the board.
I mean, Flavia, I think that if it says that, if the code says that, the design elements of the duplex need to be similar in general shape, size, and design, then we have to make an interpretation as to whether or not we think it is. And it's just my individual opinion that I don't think it is. So, I mean, we're empowered to make that judgment, and otherwise, there shouldn't be a conditional requirement. It should just be required or just approved as by right, and it's not by right. And that's where I think there's a real deficiency in the code, because it puts us in this position of, I mean, if we don't have any authority to impose judgment, then why the hell even bring it to the BZA? Just make it by right.
Well, let's go for a roll call. I don't think we're going to go anywhere here.
Yeah.
And I would like to let them go watch the U.S. play. Correct? And I am going to vote yes for continuancy, not because I agree with
Yeah,
it, but
I
because I don't want this to, I don't want you to be denied.
Yeah.
And let's see if we can come up with a better solution next time. But and hopefully the whole board will be here, so we're going to be, more people, so we can have a better, so it's not just what is happening right now. Anyway, roll call, please.
Burrell,
Yes,
Fernandez,
Yes.
Kacinko.
Yes.
we are adjourned.